Welcome, everyone, to another special mock draft episode on Couch Potato Diary. Thank you all so much for tuning in on YouTube. Thank you all so much for downloading and listening, for those of you listening in podcast form. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in. You can find me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm at Primetime Klein, twitch.tv/primetimepk, and you can email this show at couchpotatodiary@yahoo.com. We have been running through our mock drafts for the upcoming fantasy football season. We're trying one from every spot in the draft. Earlier today, we went from the number 7 overall spot, so now we're going to go from number 8 overall. There were some interesting choices made early on in the draft when we were coming up to number 7, but we did eventually go with Saquon Barkley. We will see what plays out here. We're going to click OK. Once again, I forgot to mute my computer. So the top 3 go chalk for basically the first time in a while. And once again, we are left with the call of Bijan Robinson over Saquon Barkley. Nick Chubb is also available in this area, but again, this is going to be a little repetitive, but we're going to go with Saquon Barkley in this spot here at Team 8. I just think he is a bit more of a sure thing than Bijan Robinson. Interesting that Derrick Henry comes off of the board before Bijan there. Nick Chubb does eventually go at the back end of the second round to Team 12, who loops around with Lamb and with Nick Chubb. Team 11 went double wide receiver with Stephon Diggs and A.J. Brown. Team 10 went double running back with Bijan Robinson and Josh Jacobs, and that's kind of an interesting move. You have Jacobs, who is much more of a sure thing, Bijan Robinson, who feels like the high upside play. So I don't mind that call there. So this is where we went quarterback in the last one. All the quarterbacks are still available. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. At running back, it is Jonathan Taylor, Tony Pollard, Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, and Ramondre Stevenson. So again, until we get to Stevenson, which is at pick 30, we're not in love with any of those running backs. At wide receiver, it's Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, and T. Higgins. So a couple of options that weren't there the last time that are there this time. And so because of that, we are going to go receiver here, and it is going to be Devontae Adams as our pick. I worry about the quarterback situation in Vegas this year, but he is quarterback proof. He is so good. Quarterbacks come off of the board back to back with Mahomes and Allen. A third quarterback goes with Jalen Hurts. We've had a mini run on running backs with Pollard and Etienne coming off of the board, then a good run on wide receivers with Devonta Smith, Chris Olave, and T. Higgins. Aaron Jones goes just before us, so now we are in an interesting spot. We have Ramondre Stevenson, who I like at running back, if we want to lock that up, but we have been talking all year about how we don't necessarily love some of the wide receiver options as this goes on. And you saw in our last mock draft, we had 3 big running back plays in the mid to late rounds that I think really rounded out our running back room. So here, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is in talking about a guy who I think is undervalued with Deebo Samuel, and we're going to lock him in. So our 2 receivers are Deebo Samuel and Devonta Smith. I feel like that is just a great setup. Ramondre Stevenson does go to Team 11, who desperately needed a running back after going Diggs, Brown, and Metcalf. But it does come back to us here. So let's see what's out there. At quarterback, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence are available. Running back, it's Dameon Pierce, J.K. Dobbins, Miles Sanders, Alexander Mattison, and Cam Akers as the top ones available there. And a wide receiver, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, DJ Moore, and Terry McLaurin. And so here is another opportunity for me to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to do it. We're going to load up on wide receivers here, and we're going to go DJ Moore and just be set at wide receiver. We can take a couple ones for depth, obviously, later on, but I feel very good about where we are at. The gamble here is missing out on one of the top quarterbacks, which we have said we don't want to do. Burrow and Fields did go after us, but aside from that, no quarterbacks have come off of the board. Herbert is still there, as is Trevor Lawrence. If we went no quarterback here, I do think it's an interesting call to go with Tua and then with maybe a bit more of a reliable quarterback like a Geno Smith a little bit later on in your draft. Dameon Pierce did come off of the board, which is a little upsetting. We do like him in these spots. So at running back, it's Cam Akers, James Conner, DeAndre Smith, and Alvin Kamara. At wide receiver, Christian Watson, Chris Godwin, Brandon Ayuk, and Mike Williams. So again, don't really love where wide receiver is at. And so this is why I feel comfortable going with the tight ends with Waller, Pitts, Goddard, and Evan Ingram all there. We went Waller last time. So let's see what happens and what's available with the tight ends if we do wait on it a little bit. And we're going to go Justin Herbert in this spot. I said on the episode earlier today that I do feel like the Chargers are being undervalued, and the addition of Kellen Moore is really going to, I think, unlock things out there. So a couple of tight ends come off, but not Darren Waller, who we, again, are big fans of here. And so I think because of that, like I do worry that I'm leaving running back maybe a little bit too long, but let's see what happens if we go Waller in this spot. So we had 3 wide receivers early after drafting Saquon with our first overall pick. Kamara comes off the board. Kamara and Cook were the ones that I was kind of hoping would come back around on me, but probably didn't. We do have a bit of a run on running back, so this is something we're learning here. And this is twice now that we've kind of done this with Darren Waller, where we've reached a little bit on Waller when there's still a couple of players that we're all right about at running back, and it ends up costing us. Evan Ingram is still there, so what maybe we should have done is gone with a Kamara or a Dalvin Cook in this spot, and then waited for the next pick to come around to go with either a Waller or an Evan Ingram. So right now, running back, we have David Montgomery, James Cook, A.J. Dillon, and Antonio Gibson. And so, once again, we're going with our undervalued players here, and we're going with James Cook as our RB2. I feel pretty good about that. So there you see, Evan Ingram goes at 7-11 in this draft. So we probably could have waited on Waller, got a pretty good tight end there. So there's a bit of a draft day mistake and a bit of a stumble that I think I made. Looking at what's available now, we're not going to go quarterback and tight end for the rest of the draft. Looking at what's available now at running back, it's A.J. Dillon, Antonio Gibson, Zach Charbonnet, and Khalil Herbert. At wide receiver, it's Brandon Cooks, Gabe Davis, Kadarius Toney, Zay Flowers, and Michael Thomas. So there are 3 players that I'm interested in, and I think we'll be able to get hopefully 2 of them in these next couple of picks. We do have a long way to go, so we might be losing out on the ADP game, but I'm interested in Zay Flowers, I'm interested in Antonio Gibson, and I'm interested in Khalil Herbert. And so with that, because our wide receiver room, I guess both, we only have 2 and 3. But I've said before, wide receiver does tend to fall off. We are going to go with Zay Flowers in this spot and hope that, okay, Gibson doesn't come back around to us. If Khalil Herbert doesn't, then this was a gamble that didn't necessarily pay off. But we see a quarterback come off in Tua. Khalil Herbert does go in the early part of the 9th round. So we made a gamble. It didn't necessarily pay off. I don't think Flowers would have been there either. At this point at running back, it is Jamal Williams, Samaje Perine, Devon Achane, Elijah Mitchell, Ezekiel Elliott, and Jerick McKinnon. And at wide receiver, it's Quentin Johnson, Treylon Burks, and Cortland Sutton. So there is a point where that wide receiver running back dynamic does shift for us, and that is if Gibson and Herbert aren't there, because those are 2 guys who we have felt very comfortable with in some of these drafts. Kind of filling out our running back room with late. So that is a good reminder that it's not going to necessarily play out exactly the way that you want it to. I would like another running back. I do think I can wait on a couple of these names now, so we're going to fill out at wide receiver. And I'm going to go Treylon Burks. I think as the number 2 option in Tennessee, he's going to have a lot of good opportunities. And I think he is due for a bit of a breakout this season with the Tennessee Titans. A bunch of receivers come off of the board after us, with Quentin Johnson, Cortland Sutton, Elijah Moore, and Odell Beckham Jr. 2 quarterbacks, Anthony Richardson and Aaron Rodgers. Interesting that both Team 11 and Team 12 double up on quarterback. Team 11 went Dak Prescott and Anthony Richardson. Team 12 goes Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers. So we are back to us. At running back, it's most of the guys who we just mentioned. Only 1 running back came off the board. That was Jamal Williams. I still think we can wait on Zeke a little bit, but there isn't anyone at wide receiver who I'm feeling all that super passionate about. We can start looking at defenses with Dallas. Buffalo taking a hit earlier today with Von Miller going on the PUP, so he's going to be missing the first 4 weeks. That Jets defense is going to be a real problem this year. So you know what? We're going to go with the Jets defense here and then hope that maybe Ezekiel Elliott comes back to us in the next go around. Samaje Perine and Elijah Mitchell come off of the board. Devon Achane. So it's a few more wide running backs than we were hoping for. Jerick McKinnon. Okay. So it didn't survive to us. Ezekiel Elliott goes 1 pick ahead of us. Oh, that is so frustrating. So now we go with a bit of the gamble plays that we have here. Jaylen Warren is someone who we've liked quite a bit in these spots. Kondre Miller is someone who we like in these spots a little bit here. But I'm going to go with Tank Bigsby. I think he has the ability to become a number 1 running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. So I'm going to go Bigsby and hope that Warren and Miller are still there for us when things come back around. One running back comes off in Damian Harris. We have a kicker for the first time today in Justin Tucker. Another running back in Tyler Algier, but we stay strong with our guys. So we're going to go Jaylen Warren, another running back who by the end of the year could be a number one runner for his team. Raheem Mostert is another running back that comes off. In a perfect world, we get Condre Miller, and we still are able to fill out this running back room in the way that we really wanted to in this draft. A couple of defenses have come off since we picked. Jared Goff comes off of the board, and it stays. So we are going to go with running back Kendre Miller for the New Orleans Saints, and I feel so good about this. We passed on a couple of wide receivers that we went with in the back part of this draft last time with Darnell Mooney and Romeo Doubs, but I like the running backs that we've been able to fill this room with, and this is turning into, once again, another pretty solid team. This is going to be our last skill position pick with our 14th overall play. Jalen Hyatt, Jonathan Mingo, Nico Collins, and Zay Jones are the available wide receivers. At running back, it's Dante Foreman, Deuce Vaughn, Rashawn Johnson, Kenny Gainwell, Kareem Hunt, and we're going to go with the guy who we've been finishing basically every draft with, and that is Jeff Wilson. And so we have, with our last 4 picks here before we get to kicker, gone Tank Bigsby, Jaylen Warren, Condre Miller, and Jeff Wilson, all backs who I feel have the potential to really elevate this year into higher spots with their teams. And so I feel so good about what we did with this draft. And we're going to go Dicker the Kicker one more time here. And that's going to be it. So looking at how this squad played out, our starting quarterback is Jalen Hurts. At running back, we have Saquon Barkley and we have James Cook. Maybe a little wobbly there, but I'm putting my money where my mouth is on Cook. I think he has the potential to really step up this year. He's going to be the number one back in Buffalo on an offense that's going to score a ton. So that is not a bad second option to have, especially when your wide receivers are Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, and DJ Moore. That bang, bang, bang is an elite wide receiver group. At tight end, we get one of the good ones in Darren Waller. And then for our flex, well, we have DJ Moore who could go in there if we're playing in a 2 wide receiver format, which I believe this was set up to be. We also have Zay Flowers, Traylon Burks that can go in there. And again, our quartet of running backs who I think can take a step up this year. I feel like this is going to be a team that by the end of the season, we have some very difficult decisions that are going to need to be made. And quite frankly, I don't know who we're dropping when we're picking up guys in waivers. I like a lot of these guys quite a bit. So that is our look at what happens with the number 8 overall pick. The number 9 overall play is going to be coming up in the podcast tomorrow. Again, I'm a little slow on getting these all up on YouTube, but they are eventually going to be all up on YouTube by the time you are going to be looking to really get into that big push for draft week. Thank you all so much. If you're just catching this on YouTube, first of all, subscribe, like, and thank you. But I host a podcast 3 times a week at least. It is called Couch Potato Diary. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening on podcast form, thank you all so much. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. And there's going to be a big episode coming out tomorrow. We're going to be looking at the most talented teams in the NFL. We're going to be doing another mock draft, and it's going to be CFL Power Rankings Day. So there's a lot to get to. Thank you all so much for tuning in today.